It's a big, long, complicated, convoluted story, or a myth, if you will, that had started a very long time ago with just lies about who he was, who his family was. Like, that was going on even when we knew one another, and that was a long time ago.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. So, I have a question for you. Are you still friends with the people that you used to go clubbing with? Like, do you actually keep in touch with them, or do you just Facebook stalk them late at night when the image of their face suddenly pops into your head unexpectedly? Do you know what they have got up to since you knew them, and have any of them gone on to do great or not so great things? Well, if it's in the latter camp, whatever it is, it's probably not going to be as scandalous and scintillating as the actions of the friend of this week's Lost Spaces guest. And who is that guest? Well, it is the genderqueer, multi-disciplinary artist, educator, and podcaster, John Moletress. John started to go out on Philadelphia's gay scene when they were just 16 years old and found a core group of people with who they could go to clubs like the Lost Space Shampoo with. We talk all about 90s fashion, the etiquette of after parties, and getting frisky with the boy next door. And notice how I haven't told you what that scandalous thing that their friend did is? You're going to have to listen to the whole episode to find out. Let's get into it.
This was either 7th or 8th grade. This was around the 13 to 14 time period. I'm not quite sure when. There was a new family that had moved in like 2 doors down from me. We lived in a pretty, it was the suburbs of Philadelphia, but it was a little bit pushing into agricultural country. So it wasn't kind of like enclave suburbs. These were proper sort of rural streets. The houses were a decent sort of distance from one another. So these new folks moved in like 2 doors down. And I don't remember, I must have gone over to play with the son, the boy, who was the same age as me.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, we basically started like fucking around when we were young. We were like 13. And it continued through probably, I want to say, 16 or 17. It was like 3 or 4 years. It was the longest sexual relationship I've ever been with one person.
I thought there was going to be like lots of longing and desire and then nothing actually happening, but things happened.
Oh no, this was just fucking. I mean, like we didn't speak to one another in school, and then he actually became sort of the star quarterback in high school, and then we totally didn't talk to one another, and then eventually as we got on in high school, it kind of it dropped off.
So wait, so was he the star quarterback whilst you were fucking?
Yeah. He became so in high school.
And what, like, how much did that fuck with your head? Or were you able to compartmentalize it?
Well, I knew at that point that everyone was so desperate to hide their sexuality, because this would have been when I was in high school. It was 1991 through 1995. Yeah, so I was pretty much aware that, like, even if there was someone that talked to me sort of when they were not around all of their friends, they would totally participate in the bullying when they were en masse, when they were with their friends to kind of like prove to everybody that there were no tendencies there.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess there's like the two parts of your brain, right? Or the two parts of your understanding of it. There's the rational side, like, oh, I can understand that they're just trying to survive, that they're just trying to pass, that they're just trying to fit in. But then there's the other side that's like, oh, how could they be such a cunt to me?
Yeah, I guess it was so ingrained. Like homophobia was so rampant and so ingrained that I just knew it was going to happen all the time. And I never really questioned, like, why are you being such a dick? Because it was expected. It was the performance that everyone had to do when they were in their groups. Yeah. But I could not pass. I was a faggot. I was in musical theater. There was no passing.
Yes, I understand.
I used a lot of hairspray at one point. I mean, it's just, there was no passing.
Well, in the 90s.
Yeah, it was real. Yeah. Oh, here's another thing too. There was a talent show. We had a talent show in junior high. Yeah, and you better fucking believe that I lip synced to the Phantom of the Opera as the Phantom. I went to the local costume shop and I rented a tuxedo. I found a mask somewhere and I cut it in half. But rather than my face being deformed on the underside of the mask, I just covered it with glitter. So when the mask came off, I just had a half face full of glitter.
Amazing. Isn't it funny the things that you do in high school when you are aware that you should be playing down your sexuality and that you should be trying to pass and that you shouldn't draw attention to yourself, but you're also like, everyone's going to love this. This is amazing. And you don't recognize that actually, no.
Yeah.
People are going to find it strange.
I mean, I wasn't doing it to please the peers by any means. I mean, like, I have been throwing myself at the belly of the beast since I was a child. How many dangerous situations can I get involved in?
So then why didn't you go for the Sarah Brightman character? Surely that's the more fun one to play.
I know, but that was pushing it a little bit. And I think, I think that, like, yeah, that would have been pushing it for the faculty. Yeah.
And so the football player, it just fizzled out.
It just fizzled out.
Okay.
The way we would go about it all the time is we'd call each other on the landline.
Of course. Was it a rotary phone?
No, we had a push button. Although, that being said, my grandparents had the rotary phone.
Oh, they're so much fun. I want them to come back.
So, yeah, we would call each other on the landline and we would ask, are your parents home? And then he would either come over or I would go over there. And there were also times when we would hook up, like, in the woods. So we lived on the edge of a big wooded area. So we would go in there. And I remember a couple of times it'd be, like, in the middle of dead in the middle of winter. And we would hook up, like, in the snow, freezing our nuts off.
The commitment of a horny teenager.
Yeah.
Okay, so by your own admission, everyone at school was like, yes, he's probably homosexual. Did you come out at school? Did you wait till later? What was the process?
I never had, I feel like I never had a defining coming out moment. I just never denied it. And there were some people that I definitely said it to in high school. But other than that, I started going out to the gay bars when I was 16. So I was already running around in, homo spaces, I got a fake ID, and this was long enough to be where you could literally go into a store on South Street in Philadelphia and, have some photo of you laminated into some weird card, and it would be accepted as an ID.
Oh, wow. Did you have a fake name?
No, it was my name. They would make them for you in the back of the store.
But you could have been anyone you wanted to be, and you just kept being yourself.
Yep.
Well, and so was it just your date of birth, but they just shaved a few years off? Sorry, I'm just very naive about this.
Yeah, it wasn't a driver's license. It's just a state-issued ID. I don't think they do them anymore. Well, they must still do state-issued IDs if you don't drive. But yeah, they used to make them in the back of these head shops, where they would sell bongs and smoke accessories and things. And then in the back of the store, they were running a whole fake ID chain.
And it was before there were holograms and fancy things on licenses. So it was just a laminated.
It was like someone put it in a plastic bag and put a heat gun on it. Like it's that type of lamination.
Oh, if only we could go back to those days.
I know, simpler times. Homophobic times, but simpler.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little questionable. It's still very divisive now.
So going out to clubs since you were 16, did you, like the first time you went, did you go on your own? Or was there someone who took you under their wing?
I went on my own. I remember the outfit I was wearing.
Tell me about it.
And anything after that, I don't remember. So there was an International Mail store in the mall that was near me. Do you know International Mail?
No.
It was like a catalog celebrating the sort of predominantly white male athletic physique. And they would sell everything from like day wear to swimsuit to underwear, but like it would be like a swimsuit made of lace or like underwear made of nothing but like fishnet. It was totally gay, very bizarre, very South Beach. But there was a store in our mall, in the King of Prussia Mall, which is in a suburb of Philadelphia. This is the time when like really long vests were popular, like a vest that would go down to like below your knees, like to a mid-calf length, and Nehru collars, and also like those Renaissance shirt, like sort of like ruffling somewhere, like on the sleeves, or like I don't know what it's called.
Like the pirate shirts.
Basically. Those were very popular at this time. And then it was a long sand vest, one of those shirts, and a matching sand pair of shorts. It was a vest and short combo. And I wore these like tan military boots. So it was like faggot up top, butch on the bottom. And that was the outfit that I wore in there. And I was also at this time bigger. I was an awkward, bigger kid. But I specifically remember wearing that, and I remember going there by myself. Now, I should also give this some context. This was back when AOL Men for Men chat rooms were just like the thing. This is even before gay.com, that web browser interface to meet boys, way before Grindr, Scruff, and those things came onto the scene. So, like, if you wanted to meet someone, you had to go out to the bar. I didn't start using the AOL Men for Men chat room until I got a car at 16, because I remember I had to travel around. And I remember you travel quite a fucking distance because, like, when living out in the rural areas, there are not a lot of, like, people, like, available in your town. And I remember driving upwards like to central PA and like drive 2 hours for a hookup.
Yeah, with only like one photo of that person to go by.
Well, if you would get a photo. I mean, this is the time where you had to like scan your photo. So you had to put it on the scanner and then you had to upload it. It was a whole process. But mainly you would go off of stats like age, height, weight, and then the color of your eyes. Like that would basically be all that you had to go off on. So that being said, I definitely had met at least a handful of creepers that were not the age that they told you they were.
No.
Yeah.
So this going into the club then, for the very first time as a 16-year-old, were you just strident or were you terrified?
Terrified.
But what made you like sure that it was what you needed to do? And what gave you the courage?
I don't really remember. The second I got a car, and I did get a car when I was 16, I was like off and running. I was going to the city a lot during the week, going out. I wanted to be around people that were similar to me.
Mm-hmm. And so you pushed aside all of your fear and you went into the club.
Well, it was a different kind of fear. So the fear in school was you're going to get killed. And the fear of the club was like, you're going to get raped. I mean, that was like essentially in a very sort of like, I remember it was very sexually aggressive. Consent was not a thing at that time. And it's specifically this bar, and I'll name it, it's called Woody's. It's in Philadelphia. I have
Oh,
recently
yeah.
just moved back to Philadelphia and I'd actually went to Woody's. It's not the same bar. It's the same facade. It's the same thing. But inside it's unrecognizable. But it was like before it was divided by a huge wall and the bar came out so far to the walls, you had to like shimmy past the entire bar to like move around it to get upstairs to go to the bathroom. And the entire way you would just be people put their hand down your pants, you'd be groped. I mean, it would just like, it was very sexually aggressive.
Wow. That's so weird.
Yeah. I remember there was one guy that would just like, every time I go in there, he would just not leave me alone. He would just follow me around. Like, yeah, it was aggressive.
And was that because, I mean, like obviously it was because he was an asshole, but did you give off like an innocent, young, naive kind of vibe?
Probably a messy, young, innocent kind of vibe.
Messy, like to hear that. So then going to a place where you're groped and made to feel like an object, how long did it take for you to go back again? Were you like put off by that?
Oh, I was there every week. No, I was there every week, and I'd started to actually form a group, like regulars, like people that I would know there. I knew the bartenders. I would be able to just go there by myself and see people that I knew and be able to chat because that, like I said, this was really pre apps days. So you really kind of formed friendships by going out and meeting people.
And you had to be more intentional.
Yeah.
And so we're not here to talk about Woody's today. We're here to talk about Shampoo. When did you first start going to Shampoo, and was it around this time or?
I think it was when Shampoo opened, which would have been in like 1997. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I started going there, I think, when it opened. And at this time, yeah, I was definitely using AOL Men for Men chat rooms. And I think this is also when I discovered gay.com. That had become another chat, like virtual meeting space. And I met a couple of people and we had actually, well, we'd become friends. There was never a sexual thing there, although I was, at that point, I was just like in love with everybody. I'm like, they would talk to me. I'm like, oh, I just like fall in love with them. So, but I had a regular couple of people that I would go to Shampoo. And now Shampoo was not a gay club, but they had what became the biggest sort of gay night in the city, and that was on Friday night, and it was called Shaft Fridays.
Ah, okay.
And that's when we would go. And it was in a big warehouse. It was a huge space. So they had, you coming downstairs, they had a DJ and kind of lounge-ish area with a bar downstairs. You go upstairs and they have like the main room, and then they have a side room. The main room had a DJ, the side room had a DJ, and then they had a back that opened up into like an open air situation where they had like 2 hot tubs and go-go dancers in the hot tubs, and they had another bar back there. And then they had a balcony bar. Yeah, it was quite big.
So the health and safety precautions taken
I
for
don't
these
think we did
hot
that in
tubs.
the 90s. No, I
that's
never got into
scary.
the hot tubs. I mean, like, I would look at the people in the hot tubs, but I never got in there.
But surely, like, the water would splash everywhere.
I mean, I
No?
guess I'm also the
Yes?
person
Or
that
just do
didn't
it?
go into the foam. I'm not stupid. I don't want pink eye.
You're not an idiot. Yeah, of course. Why
Yeah.
would you? Why would anyone?
Well, people
How
get
is it
drunk and they'll
appealing?
fucking do anything.
Anyway, so do you remember the first time you ever went then to Shampoo?
That I do not. My Shampoo experience is blurry. I remember certain things about it. Like, I think when I started going to Shampoo is when I probably discovered E. or maybe I was doing coke. I don't remember, one of those things, or maybe both of them. But this was also, I remember going to Shampoo, and we would spend like the first 45 minutes upwards to an hour just like looking for drugs. Like that would be the first part of the evening. It'd be like act one, looking for drugs.
So how do you do, what's the process? What do you do?
I just go around and ask people. And then by a certain point I knew all the drug dealers there, so that wasn't like as difficult. It would just basically be asking, is so-and-so coming tonight?
But so then if we jump back to the point before you knew who the drug dealers were, would you just indiscriminately ask anyone, or would there be a certain look you'd go for?
Yeah, it would usually be people with like glow sticks for the E, and then like people wearing sunglasses for coke. I mean, it was stupid. But I mean, yeah, basically. You just ask around. I mean...
okay, glow sticks, sunglasses. Got it.
Yeah. It was considered a raver club, essentially. So there were a lot of drugs being taken in that place.
And so then after this point, so when you've scored drugs, what happens then with you and the group?
We would do them, and then somehow I'd eventually get home. Or we would go over to my friends who lived in Old City and ride out the drugs there. Or he'd have like a party.
Oh, so you wouldn't like spend the night at the club. You would just go there with the purpose of finding drugs.
No, we would spend the night there. But I remember
I see.
those pressed E pills only lasted for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So by the time they were like coming down, it was like time to leave. Unless for some reason it took us like an extra long time to get them. And we popped them like right before the club was about to close.
It was kicking you out.
Like, God, now I have to drive back to my parents' house and I'm fucked up.
Well, okay, so I'm going to ask really naive, stupid questions. Please don't think too poorly of me. So what is the coming down process with these?
Well, like the sort of like dopamine rush euphoria that would be going on where like everything is great, I'm on another planet, you just sort of be aware. And it would still feel kind of lightheaded. It sort of reminds me of like when I've had a coffee and cigarette in the morning and I feel just kind of like a little anxious.
Oh,
but
okay.
they used to press those pills with everything under the sun. I mean, like it wasn't just MDMA.
So it was always different.
Oh my God, yeah, you never knew what you were gonna get. Like sometimes those things would be pressed with like heroin, cocaine, pharmaceutical drugs. I mean, it was a grab bag.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is the come down a crash, or is it just more like a realization that it's wearing off?
Yeah, you've depleted your system, so the next day would just be like you'd be just depressed and forlorn.
Promising yourself you're never going to do it again.
Yeah.
And so coke is an upper as well.
Oh yeah.
And what's the come down from that like?
I just would feel crappy. I don't do coke or E anymore. I mean, I probably have done Molly once in the past 3 years. But yeah, I mean, cocaine is shitty anymore. So like, it's like laced with a million things. And it just would give me like terrible allergies when I used to do it. But now it's scary because fentanyl, it's found its way in like local dealers' cocaine supplies. So people are like buying coke, doing a line and dying. I mean, it's yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
no.
so
Okay.
PSA, if you're going to do cocaine, go to the pharmacy and get the fentanyl test strips. You can just ask for them and test that shit before you put it up your nose.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, I've known 2 people that have had overdoses with fentanyl-laced coke in the past couple of years.
Shit.
Yeah.
You'd think they wouldn't want that because then their customers wouldn't come back.
Well, I don't know the psychology behind it all. It's like, it just must be, it's a cheap way to cut it. I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyways, thank you very much for that quick lesson. I appreciate that. Time for a quick ad break. So, As you know, this show is all about spaces. And one of the things that I am particularly interested in exploring is what are the ingredients to a successful space? Is it about the host? Is it about the people who happen to be there? Is it about the ground rules? Or is it a magical combination of all of the above plus a little bit more? Well, luckily, I have been given the opportunity to find out. I have recently partnered with Spaces, the new group chat app for queer communities. On Spaces, users can set up their own space within the app, and the one that I have set up is called Lost Queer Spaces, where I will be sharing a little more insight from every episode of this show, but I will also be throwing in some vintage nightclub posters, throwback songs, and a whole heap of embarrassing photos from sweaty nights out clubbing. If you want to know more, all you need to do is find Spaces in the App Store, download it, and set up your profile. And don't worry if you're on the go at the moment, I will make sure to include more details as well as a link in the show notes for this episode. So let's get back to the show, but I hope to see you very, very soon on Spaces.
Let me think about Shampoo. So Shampoo shuttered its doors in 2013. Now, I hadn't been to Shampoo, I would say, since like 2002 or something. 2002, 2003. It had been a good long time.
But and so, do you remember how you responded when you found out that it had closed?
No, because I hadn't thought about it in so long. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in so long. And I think most of the people that I used to go there with have also since then moved out of Philadelphia. Well, one of them is in federal prison.
They probably won't be going anytime soon.
No, he's recently in federal prison. There's a whole story there that's actually a quite famous story, but that being said.
So hold on a second. So you're just going to say there's a whole famous story here. Let's move on.
Well, it was just all over the news. But one of my friends that we used to go to Shampoo with all the time, like, is now in federal prison for selling like millions of dollars of fake Basquiats, like was a part of an art ring, so to speak. But I actually hadn't spoken to him in years. I had moved out to LA, Los Angeles, and he was living in Los Angeles in 2016, and I had reached out a couple of times to say, do you want to get together? And it was just kind of like, we never wound up getting together. But that apparently was going on while I was in LA. Maybe that's the reason why he was busy.
Shit.
I know.
What's it like finding that out?
I called my friend and I said, girl, did you hear about blah, 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 blah? And Jamie's like, yeah, we saw that coming. I was like, I didn't know that it would have been art, but I figured that something would probably get her in the end.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it. It's a big, long, complicated, convoluted story, or a myth, if you will, that had started a very long time ago with just lies about who he was, who his family was. Like, that was going on even when we knew one another, and that was a long time ago. There's just a lot of lies being told. So, I mean, we sort of, like, eventually thought that something would happen where all of these weird things would catch up with him. Yeah.
So when you found out, you were like, "Oh yeah, that makes total sense."
I mean, shocking, just because I couldn't imagine him in a federal prison. I mean, I couldn't imagine that queen in a Walmart, let alone a federal prison.
How long? How many years?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it. I did read a couple of articles when they came out. But I think it's a handful. I mean, I think it's like 4 or 5 I read or something like that.
Okay, anyway, sorry that we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about you and your experiences. So when you found out about Shampoo closing, you weren't too bothered.
No, because it was after the fact. I mean, I didn't find out. I don't remember hearing about it in 2013. I think this was after the fact by a few years. Yeah. But we used to get there. Yeah, the club, I think, would open at 9, and we fucking got there at 9 because you could drink. You'd get $1 well drinks from like 9 until 10 or 11 or something, and we'd just go there and load ourselves up on dollar drinks. But like, yeah, we would totally get there when it opened. We were such dorks.
I remember that. Like, you know, in lots of clubs, you used to be able to get in for free before a certain time.
Yeah,
so you'd
no
be
cover.
Like, we're going to get there 5 minutes before that cutoff.
No cover, dollar drinks, ample parking. Ample, and that's unheard of in Philadelphia. This had a ginormous parking lot. It was completely free. Ample parking.
And it doesn't matter that the club is empty and we've got to stand around for 2 hours waiting for it to fill up because we saved $5.
No, I don't think it would take 2 hours to fill up because you have to understand that bar's last call in Philadelphia is 1:45, and you need to be out of there by 2. Like, that's been an ordinance in Philadelphia for as long as I can remember, is that clubs and bars have to shut by 2.
So that applies to clubs as well?
Yeah.
There's no way that it goes later than 2?
No, not unless it's some, like, weird...
illegal
situation.
Underground.
Well, that or like some after party situation.
See, okay. I live in two minds about these early closing times because part of me is like, oh, amazing, there's a built-in excuse to go home. But then another part of me is like, what if I want to stay out and dance all night?
You'd need to go back to a house party. And we would do that. I mean, we would have house parties and stuff. And especially because I remember later down the line when I was really going to Shampoo the most, we were definitely doing drugs, and we're doing drugs and still doing drugs when the club closed. So we would go back to my friend's house, or we would go to a house party.
Would it always be the same friend?
No, it would change around a bit. Yeah, but it'd always be just a little sketchy. Maybe it wasn't like that felt sketchy. People were just sketched out because they were on so many drugs.
But it does add this whole other layer of planning, doesn't it? Like, we're going to have to figure out where everyone's going to.
Totally. So you would start the evening spending an hour looking for drugs. You would end the evening spending an hour trying to figure out where the fuck you were going afterwards. It's just a lot of work.
A lot of logistics. And not everyone had reliable phones. You couldn't do group chat. You couldn't do things like that. So you had to make the plan before you left the club.
Yeah.
Oh, that's stressful.
Yeah.
That is the other nice thing about phones in those days not being as reliable and not everyone messaging you, is that you could just disappear, right? You could just be like, I've had enough, I'm going to go home.
Yeah, totally. I didn't have a mobile phone when I first started going to Shampoo. Yeah, you'd have to write a number down on a BevNap if you wanted someone's number.
Aww. Did you keep them? I think I kept them in a shoebox, all of the ones I had.
I think for probably like a little bit, but not for too long.
Yeah, I was very sentimental about strangers for some reason. Now I probably wouldn't even have it by the time I got home if someone gave me their number on a napkin.
Well, now someone's like, can I take your number on my iPhone? And I give them a look like, why?
Oh, me too.
Why? Do you need to contact me?
Yeah, people are like, oh, do you want to take my number? And I'm like, But then like in 5 years' time when I'm scrolling through my phone and I see your name and I'm like, who is this person? I'll feel really annoyed.
I need to go through a contacts purge. There are so many people there. I don't know who they are. I don't want to contact them.
I know. I feel like it should be socially acceptable for you to be friends with someone for 5 months before swapping phone numbers.
Yeah, I guess it's easier to find one another now in the universe just because we have so much social media that we know what we're all up to for most of the time, unless like those few stragglers that like absolutely do not have social media that you look at like they're like an elephant with 3 heads. I'm like, oh, how did you manage to avoid that? What does that feel like?
What? You don't waste half of your day on the internet? What?
You don't miss anyone anymore because you see them all the time. you see photos of them all the time. You see posts of them all the time. It's like they're always right there in the palm of your hand. You don't miss them.
Yeah, and it does that weird thing to you, doesn't it? That you don't make any effort to catch up with them because
You don't need
you
to.
feel like you have caught up with them, but then, yeah.
It's the first thing that people say to you when you haven't seen them in a while. Oh, I've been following you on Instagram. I've been seeing all of the things you're up to.
What do you do in the situations where you catch up with someone and they start telling you about something that you already know because you've seen it on their Instagram? And you're like, should I just let them tell me this story, or should I say, no, I know already? Yeah.
No, I'll just say, oh yeah, I saw a post about that.
Oh, but some people love telling you their stories. I know. I just, yeah.
Well, a
I never
post
know
is
whether
such
to
a
cut them off or not.
it's such a truncated version. It's such a short edited version of what it is. So by all means, go into the more descriptive
Elaborate.
version.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. All right, well, maybe I'll try that on. I've done it a few times where I've been like, yeah, oh yeah, I know about this already. And the person looks really disappointed that I've cut them off. So I feel like maybe I should just humor them and be like, oh no, tell me more. What do you mean? You had a baby? What?
Oh, well, yeah. And also, I feel like I give a very sort of like shrugged off response, and people are like, oh, yeah, I saw you post about blah, 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 and blah. I'm like, oh, that's fun.
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't tend to go into like any more details. When someone says like, "Oh yeah, I saw you were working on this project and you posted about it," it's like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And then I feel like they probably want more information and I don't give it. I'm like, listen, bitch, I am
yeah.
putting it out there for you on a regular basis. It's on Instagram.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, I don't have the skills to just launch into a monologue about things. Like, and I'm way too self-conscious to do that. So I'm like, if you have follow-up questions, you're welcome to ask me them now, and then I can tell you about it. But I'm not going to just go into a spiel and a speech about this thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think I'm very conscious about like the things that turn me off with other creators and artists and musician types and things like that is just like long, detailed monologues about like the work that they're doing and the needing of affirmations around that. So it's a terrible thing to say about people that I know, but so I'm very conscious about not doing that myself. But I think in being so conscious about not doing that, I tend to just like not say anything at all. So maybe I'll just like, develop this air of mystery around everything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's that saying? Better to not speak and have everyone assume you're a fool rather than speak and let them know that you are. Oh, I've said that wrong.
Well, I don't know what that is.
Well, it's a saying. It's a good saying, but I haven't done it justice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to whoever came up with that saying. I've just fucked it up for you. Anyway, so looking back to John in 1997, who's spending his first hour at Shampoo trying to look for people with glow sticks or sunglasses. Is there any advice that you would give him?
No. No, just find it. Just do it. Like, go about your business. Be on your path. Yeah, I don't really have advice for that person, that part of me.
Good. That's decisive. And what do you think, like, going to queer spaces and being around queer people and exploring the community has taught you about yourself?
I mean, I've found community there, but I've continued to evolve. So, I mean, back at that time, way back in the prehistoric days, I wouldn't use the term queer. It would just be gay. And now I use the term queer to identify aspects of myself and then spaces as well. I forget what your question was.
What did it teach you?
What did going to those things teach me? How to avoid getting someone's hand down your pants.
Oh, what are your tips? I mean, not that this is a problem I experience, but...
It's a lot of twitchy movement as you shimmy down a bar line to get to the toilets.
Definitely shimmy. Okay. Do you have any memories of Shampoo or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, I would love to hear from you. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories of queer clubbing. Go to lostspacespodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me all about what it is you got up to. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where my handle is Lost Spaces Pod. Find out more about John by following them on Instagram at craftwitch, and that's craft with a K, or visiting their website, craftwitch.com, and again with a K, like craftwork. You see what they did there? You can also find their podcast, which is called I Miss You, and is a set of conversations that John had with a number of people that they had lost contact with over the years. So it's kind of intimate and honest and reassuring. And you can find that wherever you stream podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed and listened to more episodes, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told another human being who you think might be interested in the shenanigans and going-ons of this little here show. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.